Good morning, everyone. We just want to thank you for joining today's webinar titled Planning Your Work, Working Your Plan. We're excited to have Dr. Madden from Leverage Point Development taking us through this training today. So today we're going to transition from goal setting to effective planning and implementation. And so this training will build on the prior training around organizational goal setting. So today is all about putting those plans into action. And so we're excited to have Dr. Madden. And at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, wonderful. Well, good morning. Thank you all for showing up today. I know you're very busy, got a lot of stuff to do. So taking the time out to build your capacity so that you can do more is really an honor to help you guide to help guide you in this space. So, as Shira has said, this is sort of like a build up from the last training, and again, it's really powerful to think about how we plan our work. And then when we have a follow up with working that plan, it could just be really impactful. So I put together some tools and steps for you that I think will be very helpful. So I'm going to share my screen and then share my slides. But just as a reminder, my ground rules are is my responsibility to make sure that you get the gifts. So if you have questions, you need an additional example, you I'm not it's not hidden for you. Just let me know and I will explain in a different way. If you have some of your insight and experience that you want to bring into the space, that is always welcome here. I believe that all of us are smarter than one of us. So this is the space for that. So I'm going to share my screen and now I'm going to share my slides so we can get started. All right, so planning your work, working your plan. So there's a disclaimer from EYC and the Department of Healthcare Services, and I'm sure you're familiar with this disclaimer. But today's course is really about moving beyond the goal setting to how do we have effective planning and implementation. And it's interesting because you hear this implementation speak, also when we talk about strategic planning. And this important it's the same message that you need to have a big picture plan and big picture goals, but you also need to have a detailed strategy to help you get from those plans to actually making them happen. And there's so much that's happening in your work. If we think about how we can transform, these goals into implementation, it becomes a powerful tool for you. So that my goal by the end of the workshop is that you have some really good insight on what might be some structured tools to help you, realize your SMART objectives. You can stay accountable. You can keep your team accountable. You can just really, really do the important work that all of you are doing, in your with your respective organizations. So the agenda is just the 6 steps that get you from moving from goals and to plans and then working those plans. And so the first step is really about how do you transition from the goals to the plan. So you set the goals, you submit it, your information to EYC, what to do next, how to stay on target. That second step is all about how do you prioritize and manage your time. There's never enough time, talent, or treasure. So what are some tools that you can do to just effectively navigate, right? And so then we move to what are some types of action plans that you can create to really help you navigate through all of it and keep track of all of it so that your
Okay.
reporting
Oh,
is good, so that you can really do the things that you need to do. And then so we give you a peek into what some of these tools could look like, and then you can pick the ones that resonate with you. And just because when we're trying to do good work, there are always obstacles and there are always things that come up. So just a reminder that here's some insights on how to remain flexible, how do you overcome some of those obstacles, and then just wrapping it up with some frameworks that can help with accountability. So that's the game plan for today. Just a simple walkthrough of some of these steps that can help you really transition. So, all right, so we'll start with the first step. And again, if you have questions, feel free to put your voice in the space. If you have an example, whatever you need, I'm here for it. And that's where we are. All right, so that first step, transitioning from goals to plans. All right, so if we look at your goals, you had this social justice youth programming, you have your substance use prevention education. And so you have these very specific goals that you need to reach, right? And so you have this really critical information, and then now we need to move to action. So a very, very good first start is looking at your SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. This will help you to understand if you're making headway, if you're actually achieving the goal. If you smarten that goal up, it does give you this understanding of on if you're moving towards where you need to. Because if without it, there's just a lack of clarity on if we're being successful or not. So having those SMART objectives become incredibly important as our first as our first step. And you can SMART objective anything. And again, just making sure that it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound just gives you great insight on if you're moving forward in a direction that is critical. So that very first step is really about breaking down those SMART objectives. You have them, and now we need to break them down. So when we're moving from those SMART objectives to activities, so here's an example of a SMART objective: increase the leadership skills of 100 youth participants in underserved communities by 20% within the next 18 months through targeted training programs and mentorship opportunities. So it's specific because you want to increase the leadership, and it's very specific because you have these targeted training programs and mentorship opportunities. It's measurable. You want to do 100%, 100 youth, and you want to in 100 youth participants, and you want to increase this by 20%. So there's your measurable. It's achievable. You said 100 youth. You've worked with several hundred youths in previous years. You said 20%. You didn't say 100%. So relevant. When we think about youth development, leadership is a critical skill. So definitely relevant. Time bound. You've given yourself 18 months to make this happen. So you have your SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So you've done the work, but now let's add another layer to that work and build on these SMART objectives with activities. So if this is your SMART objective: increase the leadership skills level of 100 youth participants in underserved communities by 20% within the next 18 months through targeted training programs and mentorship opportunities. What are the things that you need to do in order to make this SMART objective happen? This starts the breakdown. You're moving from your SMART objectives to the specific activities. So one activity could be designing and launching a youth leadership training program. Recruit and onboard 20 qualified mentors. Enroll 200 youth participants in the program. Conduct pre and post program evaluations. Now you have your activities in place that will enable you to actualize that SMART objective. I'm going to pause just for a second and just do a quick check-in. So you've done all of these SMART objectives, right? Makes sense. You're there. Now, do you see this next step that you're taking those SMART objectives and now you're building specific activities to help you actualize those SMART objectives? Is that clear? Does that make sense? That first step. So we thought that the SMART objective is a win, right? So you move from something very general to something specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, winning, right? Now imagine if you add another layer to that, building activities onto those SMART objectives so that you can advance the work in an even more disciplined way. You got me? Any thoughts, comments, any synapses, any ahas, any like, man, I thought the SMART objectives was the win.
Yeah, no, not like a question, but as far as you're saying, like the smart, when you have an idea, you're processing it and saying, is it smart? But then after the fact, you want to dive a little deeper with the specifics of like, and then that way, you aren't wasting your time with, you had the idea, kind of pause for a minute and then give yourself like an actual, outline, like, is that even doable in my time? like I know I thought about this, but the ideas now that I write it down aren't even reflecting on like the main thing. So then, scratch that idea, and then you obviously put another idea against the smart and see if it's gonna like, give you that to initial step to move forward.
Exactly. Boom,
Yeah.
right there. That part. Yes. So now we've done the work of the SMART objectives, but now let's build the activities so that we can move forward with those objectives, right? This is how we make the movement. This is how we plan the work so we can work the plan, right? Any questions, thoughts, comments, connected tissue, anything? All right. Wonderful. Okay, going back to my slides. All right. Okay. All right. Share my screen. And now I'm going to go back and share my slides. All right. So we have these SMART objectives. We have these specific activities. You think we stopping right there, don't you? Nope. Now we need to break down even further these activities into actionable tasks. So we have this SMART objective that's really beautiful, clear. We've broken down the SMART objectives into these four major activities that will enable us to actualize the SMART objective. So for example, number three, enroll 200 youth because we're planning for losing some of those youth. So we need to be successful, we need to increase the skill level of 100 of those youth. But if we enroll 200, we've built in some buffer for us because of the challenges that our youth often face. So we're building in some resilience into our plan. So we have these four different activities. The first one, design and launch a youth leadership training program. All right. We think that's it, right? No, now we need to take another step. And now we are moving from activities to actionable tasks. So now we're taking that first activity, design and launch a youth leadership training program, and now we're breaking it down even further to build these actionable tasks. Because if we want to be successful, we saw what our SMART objectives are. We saw the activities that we needed to do to realize those SMART objectives. Now let's break down those activities into actionable tasks so that we can move forward. This is the powerful play. So in order for you to design and launch a youth leadership training program, you might have to engage youth participants to find out what their needs are. You might have to research youth leadership competencies and best practices so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You might have to develop an initial list of core and optional topics so that you can create choice for your young people because that's how you keep them engaged. You might have to facilitate a stakeholder review and feedback session so people feel connected to the work because what people co-create, they sustain. Like these are the actionable tasks that you need to put in play in order for you to realize that first activity, because that first activity is critical for you actualizing your SMART goals. So you're breaking down the work so that it feels doable. This is the eating of the elephant. This is how you make that big commitment sing. This is how you bring it to life. You break it down so that you can manage it, so you can implement it, so that you can celebrate the wins of it. This is how you break down the work so that you can realize the impact. So I'm gonna just pause for just a second and 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 just see if there's any thoughts or comments. Because if you get this part, the rest of it is just like easy. If you can break down this piece and understand like how you get from A to B to B to C and onward, then when there's inherent complexity and change, you'll be ready because you're clear about the way that you need to go and why you're doing things in this matter, because ultimately the goal is to actualize those SMART objectives.
Yeah, I think just that last sentence you said like summed it up.
Excellent. Excellent. Other thoughts or comments? You know,
You're
it,
doing
and
great.
they're here.
I just say you're doing great.
Okay, good. Thank you, Christina. It the work is heavy, the work is critically needed, and these tools just help you get the work done so that you can continue to be successful. I had a coaching call earlier this week, and one of and the individual was felt overwhelmed by some kind of fundraising task that they had identified. And so when you look at the end goal, sometimes it does feel a bit overwhelming. But when you break it down into these activities and then these actionable tasks, you've taken something incredibly complicated, and this kind of big picture, and you've now broken it down into manageable, doable, realizable tasks. And then that work starts to come to life. And now your success in moving forward fuels you. It like re-energizes you. It pushes you, it motivates you to do more because you're able to really plan your work and then work that plan. These are just really critical skills and tools that help you to, you know, embrace the work and move forward and understanding that when you're successful in your work, that the impact that you have is so transformational. So, all right, you with me? All right, wonderful. Going back, sharing my screen, and now I'm going to share my slides. So again, I'm going to back up. All we did is that we have our SMART objectives already broken down. We're looking at those SMART objectives. We thought that was the win. I'm here to say, let's push the envelope, break those SMART objectives down into activities. When you break the activities down, then you look at each activity and you create actionable tasks. And then when you do that work, now you have like the blueprint on how you can move forward. So let's take, for example, an EYC project goal example, to prevent and reduce substance use by at least 50% as reported by 150 program participants. This will be achieved by increasing protective factors through engagement in formal one-on-one mentorship programs, cultural and healing centered safe spaces, and cohort-based training internship opportunities by December of 2027. All right, now this is the EYC SMART goal, right? So here it is. What are some examples of activities that EYC could take, to actualize this project goal? We're just giving some sense. Like the powerful thing about this tool is that you'll understand it very clearly for your own work because you've been working in your work. But when you understand how to use the tool, you'll be able to look at anybody's SMART goal and start thinking about activities. This is how you strengthen the muscle. This is how you create the muscle memory. You'll be able to look at a SMART goal and then you'll say, let's break this down to some specific activities in order to make this happen. So let's practice exercising that muscle. When you look at this SMART goal, any component of it, you know, um, reduce by 50%, the substance use, increasing protective factors, one-on-one mentoring programs, cultural and healing, centered safe spaces, cohort-based training. What are some examples of activities that you could do in order to actualize the SMART goal? Just pop something into the chat. There's no right or wrong. You're just practicing looking at a SMART goal and then thinking about breaking that SMART goal down into specific activities. So pop something in the chat or unmute yourself and what's an example, what's one thing that can be done to advance this kind of SMART goal?
I think from using like the cultural kind of topic and it being youth. I mean, one activity I could see, I could implement being like native. We could use like storytelling with
Mm,
kind of tied in with wisdom.
mm-hmm. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Educational workshops for the youth, recruit 150 adult mentors and 150 mentees, assemble resources and material, enrolling 300 participants. All of this stuff is good stuff. Have a workshop. Yes. You know, the
And and
storytelling and wisdom.
in something like this, seeing that it says to reduce, is that something like you would want to have like a no name checklist to see like who's used it and then kind of redo it again in a couple months to get
Look at
that
that.
50%?
Juan Carlos pre and post assessment. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Excellent. You see how you're moving? You're taking this like clearly articulated SMART goal, and now you're building activities into it. Crafting and housing a community event with youth leaders. Exactly. Excellent. Assembling resources, materials. Exactly. Wonderful. Pre and post Assessments, yes. All right. And then now you take one of those activities and then you break them down into actionable tasks. How would you go about, you know, uh, crafting and hosting a community event with youth leaders? How would you go about creating healing centered circles? How would you go about enrolling 300 participants? How would you go about having a workshops? So now you're adding the very specific actionable task. What do you need to start with? What happens next? What happens next? So looking at one of the activities in the chat or one of the activities that you put in, spoken to the space, what are some actionable tasks that you can take to actualize that activity? What are the things that you can do? Tabling at a community event. This is a great way to start to recruit. This tabling at a community event could definitely help you recruit both mentors and mentees for that one-on-one mentoring. That's one of your critical activities. Yes. Researching successful mentorship programs. Yes. Planning an outreach program, having a listening session. Excellent. Locating a space to host the event, gathering a team to plan an event, delegating a task such as recruiting, getting the venue, getting guests. Yes. Reaching out to the local schools to get youth to participate. Yes. Excellent. All right, I'm gonna stop share. Getting some flyers together. Yes. So we can take again clarity. You have your SMART goals. You look at the activities that you need to do to realize those SMART goals. And now you have actionable, tasks to bring that specific activity to fruition. You're breaking down the work so that you can move forward. Make sense? Doable. And so if you can do this for just, someone else's SMART goal, imagine what you can do for your own because you've sat with it, you live with it, you understand the work that needs to happen. Powerful. Make sense? All right, good. Questions, thoughts, anything? All right.
Actually, yeah, I have a question. I just
Yes.
have to move because I'm in a noisy space. I'm not sure if you can see me.
Oh, I can hear you,
Um,
but not.
okay.
Okay,
Hi,
now I can see
everyone.
you.
Sorry, it's not a lot of space here at the Pride Center. So I was curious if there was some sort of like template that would be easy to follow along because it seems
Oh,
like every
I got
time
you. I got
you
you.
got it. Okay.
I
You know
got
what's
you.
up. Okay.
Uh-huh.
But the second part of that is also like the implementation part because it seems like whenever
Yes.
SMART goals get introduced, people are afraid of the work that comes with breaking everything down. So do you have any advice on how to move that process along?
Yes. Uh, Philip, I want to save your questions for the end of the workshop. And if I haven't done my job, then you come to me with them questions. I think I got you on both of those questions.
I have
And
faith in you for sure. I
okay.
know I know you can do this. Thank you. I appreciate you.
So I'm gonna walk you through. And again, if you need some different tools, I got you as well. So yes, Philip is helping me advance my agenda because if it's so helpful to have tools and the ability to break this information down so that we can move forward. So let's let's move forward and see what we got. I'm sharing my screen and I'm going to share my slides. Right. So, Philip, thank you for your question. So that next step becomes really important. How do we there's a lot to do to break down these tasks, to break down these SMART goals into these specific activities and these specific actionable tasks to realize the activities. How do you prioritize the things and manage the time? It's true that you all are doing a lot of work. So it is very true that this idea about managing your energy, not your time. So there's a lot of research that talks about when you can manage your energy, that's a way to really get lots of tasks done. Because there's never enough. Again, I always say there's never enough time, talent, or treasure, but you can have control over your energy, your mindset, the positivity that you bring to the work, the the encouragement that you provide for yourself and others. But it is true. Sometimes time management, a hack is helpful as well. So I put in a couple of things that I think could be useful. This first one is this Eisenhower matrix. So again, this matrix helps you determine the urgency and importance of a task using this 2x2 matrix. So in that first quadrant, these are the tasks that you focus on, that you do first. These are the important tasks that you need to get done. In that second quadrant, here in this upper left hand, these are the tasks that you need to schedule. They're important, but they're less urgent. Now, in that third quadrant, these are the tasks that you need to delegate. They're less important, but kind of urgent. You need to keep tasks. You need to keep track of these tasks that somebody else is doing and check in on their progress. And the fourth quadrant is it's just things you shouldn't be doing. Like that's no, put that off your list. Get that to somebody else. I know you want to order the gifts on Amazon, but somebody else could do that. So the Eisenhower matrix can help you organize the tasks so that you know which ones you need to prioritize. So it's just a simple matrix that helps you do things like focus, schedule, delegate, or avoid. Make sense? All right. Good. Also, when we put these tasks into play, it helps you kind of not have to vacillate over it. When should you do it? Should you get this done? You know, if you limit the number of tasks you put in each of the quadrants, it enables you to get them done and out of your quadrant and moving on. Again, there's also insight for when you're using the Eisenhower matrix that you can always, maintain one list. That way you can just stay focused. And again, you have to define your own priorities. Do this work in the morning so you're clear about your day and you can move forward. And again, you're not trying to overmanage your to-dos. So when we look at this Eisenhower matrix, this is a really good tool to help you prioritize. And then sometimes we can use this tool in combination with another technique. One that is very popular is the Pomodoro timer technique. And so this is sort of like you just take a chunk of time, and to work through activities. Another technique that is very popular is just you're blocking out time in your schedule when you're just calendaring to get tasks done. So you're just assigning the time in your day, in your schedule to move forward. But I want to talk a little bit more about the Pomodoro timer. And again, it's just a technique to help you improve your productivity. You essentially, put 25 minutes on, in these 25-minute increments, you're doing 20 minutes of work, 5 minutes for a break, and then you're doing this in intervals so that you can get work done. Now, the most important part of the Pomodoro timer technique is you're not disturbed in that time method that you use, right? So you're not checking your phone, you're not answering emails, you're focused without any interruptions to get to work through your tasks. And so something just as simple as prioritizing your task and blocking out your time, or using the Pomodoro technique where you set some time on a timer to not be disturbed so that you can move through the task on your list. Just really good techniques to get things prioritized, managed, and done. Make sense? I'm reading the chat, which is funny. Other thoughts, comments? Again, prioritizing your tasks and then using the technique to help with the time management. Okay. Okay, onward. Share my screen and share my slides. All right, step 3, building those action plans. So another really helpful tool. How do we build these action plans? Again, an action plan can be incredibly helpful in helping you put some milestones in place. What do you want to reach by when? And then assigning responsibility. So it's clear about who needs to do what, whose work is dependent on other people's work, what needs to get done first. So when you establish your milestones, you're really creating these kind of checkpoints where you want to maintain progress and momentum. So, for example, Juan Carlos talked about the pre and post assessment. So we need to hurry up and move forward on getting those pre-assessments developed because we know that the training starts in, I'm making up a date, in June. So we know we need to get those pre-assessments done because training starts on this date, and that assessment needs to get done before training starts so that we can have the youth take the pre-assessment. So we have these milestones of when we need to have things done because potentially something that needs to get done depends on something else. It has to happen before something else can happen. So when we set these milestones, it becomes incredibly helpful. If we know our program is, let's just say, 6 months, and we know we need to identify, I'm making up a number, 10 mentors. If we don't have, if we only have 5 mentors by May, if the program starts in June, like we need to amplify our work. So we set the milestones to say we need to have 10 mentors in place by May 1st. So we have some wiggle room if somebody falls off or we don't have enough to get it together before the June 1st program starts. So having these milestones become really powerful, so that we can ensure that we're staying on plan, right? And then there's this assigning responsibilities. It just helps for clarity for your team so people know what they're supposed to do and other people know who they need to look to get these things done. And when you have that clarity, it just really builds upon the idea that when people know better, that they do better. That it creates accountability, it creates clarity. Everybody is moving in that same direction. So incredibly powerful. So what are some steps, what are some tools that we can get for track and evaluation? So an action plan is probably one of the most straightforward and and uh and simple ways to get the work into play. So it's just a step-by-step guide on how you can achieve your goal. It breaks down the specific task. It breaks down who is responsible. It adds in deadlines. You can put in how you're going to measure success, and so when you put this information into your action plan, it allows you to keep track of it. So let's look at an example, a simple action plan example. So the first task is to select a substance use development prevention or peer mentoring curriculum. So you identify who's responsible for doing that work, when they need to have that work done by, what resources they need, and what is the indicator of success? The curriculum is completed, right? And then you can do this for each of your tasks. What is the task? Who is responsible? When is it supposed to be done by? What do they need in order to get their task completed? What is the indicator of success, right? And when you put this information together, now the work starts to be very clear, and there's a clear understanding amongst your team of what needs to happen in order for you to reach those goals, right? So the action plan is a very useful tool. So the action plan is beneficial because it gives you this clarity piece, it holds people accountable, and it really does provide this roadmap to success. So uh, I'm coming with the action plan, Philip. I already got a Google link for you so you can look at one. I think this is what you was needing and waiting for, right? So let's first take questions about an action plan, and then I'm going to put the link into the chat so you can just look at a blank action plan. You can customize it to what it is that you need for it to do. And again, it can help you move your work forward in a very intentional and disciplined way so that you can be successful in the work. So I'm going to pause and then take questions in general about an action plan. Do you see how we're breaking down the work? You got your SMART goals. You have your activities, and now you're breaking your activities into, actionable tasks. You're putting those actionable tasks on a action plan. You're making the assignments. You're saying when you need to have it completed. You're identifying what resources that you need to in order to have it done. You're identifying what does success look like. Imagine all of your team on the same page, moving in the same direction so that you can be successful in your work. That's a good day, right? Thoughts or comments? Okay, a great day. I love that. Yes. Okay, I'm going to pop the link into the chat. Okay.
Okay, here I go.
Yes, yes.
No, I keep changing computers because it seems like one of my cameras is not working.
Okay, no worries, Mr. Kelly. We got you.
One from one place to another place, another. But what happens? Good morning, everybody. What happens when you miss that goal?
Listen, what happens? What happens when you miss the bus? What you do?
You wait for the next one.
That's right, right? That's right.
You don't
Right?
leave. Wait for the next bus, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly. Here's the beautiful thing about the plan. It's not called the action actual, it's an action plan, right? And sometimes the best laid plans might fall short. Sometimes we miss the bus. But all it does is just says that what do we need to do in order to, tweak the plan so that we can meet the timeline for the new bus schedule. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So listen, the work that we do is riddled with obstacles, right? And again, this is just an echo to strategic planning, right? We have these big picture plans, but we need to stay flexible and nimble because sometimes we miss the bus, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't get to where we need to get to. That just might mean like if we need to take the bus and we about to have a talk, maybe we need to go later in that agenda. You know, if there's always a workaround in play. You can think about some things that need to happen. Maybe you just push out the deadline, you know. Always stay flexible. And Mr. Kelly, I'm going to talk about that flexibility a little bit later. But again, like our work is riddled with complexity, riddled with complexity. We cannot beat up ourselves when we don't meet these deadlines because our young people have real life challenges that they have to manage, and that shows up in our work. And we need to meet our youth where they are and support them in ways that are complicated and sometimes push us to make some different decisions and make some changes. Here's the beautiful thing about the SMART goals is that there are lots of ways that we can actualize those goals. And so maybe we need to find a different way. Maybe instead of one-to-one mentoring, maybe it's two-to-one mentoring because we didn't have enough mentors to meet that original goal. We can still mentor our youth. That is what's most importantly. Sometimes we have to change up, you know? All right. Other thoughts or comments? Yes.
Yeah. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Israel.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you, Israel.
and-
Thank you for your comment too.
it was your comment that I put in. But what comes to my mind is that uh, the nature of nonprofit work is that the work is happening and then we write about it.
Mm,
Whereas I think when I attend trainings like this, and also when I speak with funders, it's you write about the work and then you do the work. I think is seems to be the approach. So I just wonder what you can offer to reconcile the tension between the two.
yes. So I I I'll say that I'll say this. You can listen to my recording on grant writing. The when we think about how complicated this work is, honestly, the easiest part is to write the check. If you when you fund the work, like it helps it to happen, but that's the easiest part of the work. Getting the work done, tracking the work, making sure that you have the impact that you want to have, reporting on that work, you know, it like that those things are complex. So know that the reason that you got the check is because of your ability to impact the youth because you're on the front line of this work And that check is an investment in your mission and in your vision into the things that you've demonstrated that you're capable of. So when you feel the pressure of the tremendousness of the work, then you fall back into the tools that you have. You fall back into the tools and you let the tools help you, and you lean into the capacity that you've built by cultivating your toolbox in order to guide you in this very complicated work. You know, this work, you have to embrace complexity, right? We don't work in environments and with populations that enable us to embrace linear thinking, A to B, B to C, C to, like we need to be able to go from A to J, R to Q, C to X because of the complexity of the youth that we work with, and the, again, never enough time, talent, or treasure. And so if you miss the bus or if you feel pushed to do the work, know that it is in you and use your tools. Leverage that capacity that you're building by showing up today and practicing the skills, and utilizing the tools to help you navigate the pathway. You know, put that talk out your head and get back to work. You know what I mean?
Thanks so much. Super helpful. I'm glad I'm here.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're here too. All right. Good. Again, the tools will help you. The tools will help you, you know, turn your organization, multifold, So you put your tools in the toolbox and use them in ways to help you, actualize your work, right? All right. Good. Yay. Good. Okay, all right. So first I'm gonna share a screen. So here is a blank action plan. Oops, that's not the screen I want to share. I'm gonna share the actual one. So hold on. I'm gonna share screen. And okay, so I'm gonna pop into the chat right now. This link to this action plan is blank. And again, it is a tool for you to help you to navigate the space, to navigate the work. It just helps you to think about, maybe here's your SMART objective, here's the specific objective, here's the activity, who's going to do it, what's the milestone, what's the start date, what's the end date. You can, have your status. Maybe you have some notes. You can look at, what your progress is. It's just a tool for you to keep track of things so that you know where you are, so that your team has an understanding of where they are. I've used this tool in a similar tool in strategic planning work. You can have each of your individuals, you can give them their own individual action plan so they can just keep track of their task, and you potentially can keep track of the team's task. Again, an action plan is a very powerful tool that enables you to understand, where you are, and to give your team good directions on where you need for them to be so that you can all work together and realize your SMART objectives. Make sense? Yes. The template is in the chat. I'll pop it in the chat again. And uh-oh, did I give the wrong one? Hold on.
Yeah, it looks like the wrong one, Jennifer.
Sorry about that. Copy link. So, all right, check that one. Let me check it. Okay, that should be the right one. I'm going to talk about the Gantt chart in a second. So sorry about that. So now that last chart should be the action plan. All right. Yes. All right. Good.
But that reference that you put in the chat, was that the right action plan?
Yes. So
Okay,
here,
cool.
I'm going to go into the action plan again here. I'm going to share. Anybody should be able to edit it. Copy the link, blank action plan, done. Just one more time, I'm going to pop it in the chat just so that you have it. Boom. And then I double clicked on it, and it's going to pull up the blank action plan. All right, cool. Awesome. Save as, and then you can put it wherever you keep your files. Save a couple of copies so you can just practice using the tool. It's just something so that you can see all the tasks related to something particular that you can move forward and manage. Okay. Also, maybe you want something a little more in depth. Let's look at a Gantt chart. So I'm going to share my screen, and now I'm going to share my slides. So we talked about the action plan. I find the action plan to be very straightforward, useful, and there's also a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is another very useful tool. It's a project management tool. It looks at your timeline of the different tasks. It gives you a sense of when something starts and ends. It helps you to manage some of that progress and what tasks are dependent on other tasks so that you can better meet those deadlines. You know, some key components of the Gantt chart is that you can think about it being brokered or broken down into phases or subtasks. You know, you can look at how long each of those tasks are going to take. It's a really helpful visual representation of what needs to happen before something else can happen. And so you can look at the Gantt chart and you can see, like, if you're looking at these tasks, you're looking at the first task is looking at the curriculum. The next task would be recruiting the mentors. You're putting the dates on it. There's some overlap that happens. Then you're looking at the peer-led workshops in the school. When is that going to happen? The Gantt chart is incredibly useful because it helps you to think about how you can keep things on schedule. You know, how can you coordinate your teams that are working on different parts of your project? And then it just looks at, like, where is the work just being really bogged down? So maybe you can do some things differently, you know, and make things flow better. So this is your Gantt chart. And so I'm gonna re-put that link in the chat, but again, you can look at your tasks, you can break them down. You can just have a toy that you can have a tool that you can just toy around with until you get a sense of it. So I'm going to uh, look at this sheet. I'm going to go directly to the, oh, hold on. Boom, blank Gantt chart. All right. All right, I'm going to share screen. And here we go. Here's the Gantt chart. Yes, and here you can see, you can look at the specific activity, you can look at the sub-activity, all under the number one. You can look at what needs to happen next. You can see when it needs to happen. Again, just these tools that can help you organize your work so that you can stay on top of that work. And now I'm going to give you, even though I see many of you already there, copy the link to the blank Gantt chart. And there you go. Excellent. Again, save a copy, play with the tool, you know, and you'll start to master it because you have to practice. Practice makes the perfection, right? Practice gives you the ability to navigate the space. Yes. Yes, Mateo, I use the tools. Like, absolutely. Use the tools for you so that you can multifold, you know, you can multifold your impact. Okay, so, Veronica, hold on. So let me go back to this piece. So if we, for example, add this, you know, your first task might be select a substance use disorder prevention or peer mentoring curriculum. And you want to do that between January 1st and February 15th. So let's look at that. Let me see if my screen is changing for you. Okay, let me stop sharing, reshare. All right, so if you wanted to build the substance use disorder curriculum, what did we put in the chat? Let's go back to some things that we put into the, like, you already have this, recruit peer mentors might be your second task. You know, your third task might be launch peer-led workshops. What needs to happen? What's the first thing you might need to do? We had some things in the chat. There was something like maybe we need to research some different best practices on the curriculum. In order to make that happen, we need to, look at where these best practices come from. Maybe there's a couple of programs that you are knowledgeable about that you want to get copies of that curriculum. Maybe and so now you can start breaking down the specific task. When do you want to get that done? Who's going to do that? Let's go into the chat, for example, and get some of your actual responses so you can see. Here we go. Go back way up to when you had the examples. Or you could, again, what would be if you're trying to select a substance use prevention or peer mentoring curriculum, what would be one of the actionable activities that you would need to do? Anybody?
See who is and isn't used beforehand.
Say again, see who.
You said who is and isn't using substance.
What is a task? So I pulled something from one of the chat. So research successful curriculum. What else might you need to do if you're trying to select a prevention curriculum or a peer mentoring curriculum?
Know your audience.
Okay, so what I'll do is research successful youth because we're doing this for youth. So now we're going to make sure it's youth peer mentoring curriculum. Okay, that's fair. What are some other things that we would potentially need to do around this? And you can start to break down the specific activities just like we did in the chat, right? And now you're saying who's going to be responsible for that research? It's the coordinator. And when do we want them to start? So we looked at this idea of the start dates for this work being, being from January 1st. Yep. So 1, 2. Or maybe you put in the date that makes sense. You want this done by February 15th. And now it's telling you that there's 43 days in order for this to get done, right? Okay, let's see. I see some stuff in the chat. Yes, exactly. Yes. This is great. Yes, exactly. So now you can put these steps in, chart them, assign them, and what stuff needs to get done, is reflected in your template. It's actually more doable than you think because it just helps you keep organized, right? You can shade in those boxes in the weekly pieces just to give you a visual of what that 43 days looks like. So you can say the first 4 weeks of January, we're going to work on this component of the project. And then maybe you're going to do something in that second and third week so you can see how things overlap, right? So let's see. All right, let's add in this focus group to test curriculum with youth. Let me go back in here. All right, let's see. Let me share screen so you can see what I'm working on. And then you can build that out. You know what? I think I might. And so you can have this is going to be January to February 15th. And you know that is these shaded days, for example. You can put in what when this is going to happen. You're going to develop who's going to develop the curriculum. Maybe that's whomever that's supposed to be. You can determine you're researching the stuff, and then now to develop the curriculum happens, as at least February 1st. So maybe this work starts in this time frame, and you're going to make that decision in 30 days. And so that's going to happen in this time frame. So you're able to track when the work happens so that you can see visually when things need to happen before something else happens. So the Gantt chart just creates a powerful tool for you to understand. And what I'm going to do is pull up and I'll send you a link of a sample completed chart that can help you with understanding this. Good. Yeah. Okay, so here. So here is a example. Hold on. Share screen here. So here's engage youth to participate in a training needs assessment. Your first step might be develop and distribute a survey to 150 youth participants to look at their leadership skills. This person is going to do it. They're going to start January 5th, and it's going to be done here. You chart that when that happens, and then your survey questions need to get developed. That's going to happen in January, just over a 2-week period, because in order for you to develop the survey, you need to have the questions. So here's just an example of a Gantt chart that you can see how it builds, and you can see how the subtasks feed into the next. So I'm going to pop that into the chat so you can just get an example of what it could look like, right? And so now you can see in this completed example what, oops. Now you can see in this completed example what it visually looks like. You can see things start to build over time, and now you can see what the weeks show you. Like this first week, you have to get this stuff together, and then things start to build. This builds upon this. This happens after this, and so that's what your Gantt chart can start to build for you. Make sense? Good. I think I might have an example of
Sorry,
okay.
did it manually? Sorry, hi, I'm Brianna from
Hi,
Junior.
Brianna. Yes.
Um, for the percentages, did it manually put the percentages in, or did
It'll calculate for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. And then in case you really like the action plan, I'll just share an example of a action plan. So you can see here, increase the yield skill set of 100 youth. You might want to develop a needs assessment. So it has these components: draft the survey, pilot the survey, distribute the results, conduct the focus group, analyze the focus group data, present the findings to stakeholders. So here's an example of an action plan so that you can see it as well. All right. I'm popping that into the chat. All right. So you have some blank action plans and Gantt charts and some completed examples to help guide your work. Just save it as something and you'll have it for yourself. Okay. Good. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going because I just got a couple other things I want to put in your toolbox, right? So I'm going to share my screen and then I'm going to share my slides. All right. So I want to talk about just we've looked at the Gantt chart and the action plan, just some comparisons. So the Gantt chart, again, is a visual timeline. The action plan really looks at the step-by-steps. This is sort of like when, some key points of each of the tools. The Gantt chart is really good at tracking your deadlines, what needs to happen before something else can happen, where the action plan just really is good at defining who is going to do what and by when are they going to do that. You know, the Gantt chart builds on that chart, kind of that bar chart timeline, and then the action plan is really about building like this table. The focus when it comes to the Gantt chart, again, things are dependent on other things. So when tasks need to happen, how they connect to one another. And again, the action plan is like who needs to do what and by when. And so that becomes really critical for you. So your Gantt chart is really, really good to help you to track progress visually, and the action plan really helps you define the work. All right. So number 5, and just 2 more steps I want to get through, and then we're going to open up for any questions or other examples. But again, step 5, the work that we do is inherently riddled with obstacles. So it is so super important that you stay flexible. Flexibility is not a sign of instability, it's a survival strategy. So staying adaptable is so, so super critical in your work. So some insights are just one, create a plan B mindset. Always think about backup options for your critical activities and actions that you need
Hey, Brody,
to take. That
on
becomes
water.
super important for you. And so then, this iterative planning approach. So instead of just saying, I'm going to do this, this is the only way I can do this, just know that there's the importance for you to stay flexible, and that when you're able to stay nimble, then when a challenge emerges, which it will often do, you'll be prepared for that challenge, you know? And then there's something incredibly powerful, and I've heard it all throughout, this training this morning, like the power of the co-creation, co-design, and thinking, thought leadership with your youth and engaging the youth and feedback and feed forward so that the youth remain connected and engaged and provide insights so that they can help make the programming delightful, and they are all in on it. So just some other tools, just thinking about, what are some of your risks and what are some possible contingency plans, just helps you to stay adaptable while you're making progress. So if you have low enrollment in your training program, I've seen it so many times with organizations, you know, you maybe you just expand the outreach efforts, looking at, there was already some ideas about going to the schools or the community or other using social media. What are some incentives like a certificate, stipends, or maybe there's some community service hours, or maybe there's a rolling enrollment system. So if you don't get that certain enrollment by this particular day, it's not the end. You can continue to enroll youth into your program. And the reason that this makes sense, if you create this, other ways to outreach and engage, it also gives you more visibility. If you create these incentives, you're not moving off mission. You're just giving youth more opportunity to be connected to the work. This rolling enrollment can give you more flexibility to accommodate a larger number of participants, or maybe you have, quarterly starts, or there's just some flexibility that you can infuse into your way forward that helps you to meet your goals, right? What if you're having difficulty recruiting qualified mentors? Just the time and, the ask. So maybe there's some other networks that you can tap in, local professionals, nonprofit leaders, and you're doing this so that you can speed up and amplify your recruiting efforts for mentors. Maybe you're looking at reducing the mentor requirements slightly and giving them some additional training so that you're growing up your mentors. So, and when you use these slightly less experienced mentors, now you're training them on the things that are important for them to know. So now that becomes a benefit for you. Maybe you can create a mentor model where older and younger mentors, where older youth mentors, so it's like a youth mentoring program, and your youth just mentor your younger youth. And so this sort of peer mentoring can also strengthen leadership. And these older youth mentors, they're now teachers, and when you teach, you learn twice. And so that's a powerful approach that can be taken in this peer mentorship model that you might embrace if you feel like you're having, difficulty recruiting your qualified mentors. Like this is all of these techniques are ways of create mitigating and creating adaptability and flexibility. What happens if there are delays in developing your curriculum? Maybe you're looking at the core modules first, and then you're looking at your modules that need greater refinement to deliver later. And so this enables you to move on the things that you have in place and gives you time to develop the other curriculum that needs to go with it. But it doesn't hold up the delivery of the curriculum because it's not fully completed, right? Assigning multiple team members to different curriculum sections, to work in parallel. So you're really dividing up the work so that you don't have a bottleneck. Or maybe in order to address some of these curriculum development delays, you're looking at adapting some existing leadership materials that you can modify to work for the work that you're trying to do. What happens if you have low engagement from your participants? Maybe you deliver the curriculum differently. Maybe it's more interactive, more hands-on, and this helps to build the skills of the youth. Maybe you work with partnerships or collaborators and they co-create parts of the program, or they bring in guest speakers, or this youth co-leadership, it can increase some ownership into the work. Maybe there's some gamification that you could use where the youth are earning points for participation, and that increases excitement and increases retention and things of that nature. So I'm going to pause for a second because all I'm suggesting is the things that you do anyway. You're thinking about how you build resiliency and flexibility into your work, and these techniques can help you do that. Does that make sense? Okay, good. This is what you do when you miss the bus. Like then you put some other things in place so that you can continue to move forward, All right. Sharing screen back again. All right, here. So when we think about these contingency plans, we can also just think about, we can anticipate what some of the challenges might be. So what will happen if we have low enrollment in the training program? It could happen. We're doing the program in the summertime. Our youth need to work. Will they be willing to, participate? What impact will this have? This is going to be high because this is what we are. This is the core thing that we're supposed to do. So what's a contingency plan? Expand our outreach, offer incentives, move the training to a different time, maybe not summer, maybe during the school year where we know we can capture them right after school. Who's going to be responsible for that if we need to actualize this contingency plan, right? Difficulty recruiting mentors. This is the risk. What's the likelihood? Oh man, people are incredibly busy. That's going to be a high likelihood. The impact's going to be very high. So what can we do? What's some potential contingency plans we can have in place if we need to activate them? You identifying the plan, you've identified the person responsible. What if we have these curriculum delays? That could happen, but if it does, it's going to have a high impact. What are some contingency plans that we can put into place? How do we cross-train our team so that they can deliver different components of the curriculum? What's some existing curriculum that we can adopt, or adapt? So again, you're putting in contingency plans. We know about contingency plans. COVID has taught us all to put some contingency plans into place. We can use this skill set for our programs as well, and have an understanding of what are some high likelihood, low likelihood, what are some mitigation strategies that we can put in place so we can continue to move forward, because chance always favors the prepared, right? So when you're ready, you can just activate and continue to move forward. That's the power in the work that you're doing, right? All right, I got one more thing, and then that'll be it for us. So sharing my screen, and now my slides. Final step, this accountability framework is so important. checking in is a really, really useful tool. Checking in with your team. There's lots of ways you can do some check-ins. Check-ins help you hold each other accountable on your team. The check-ins help build collaboration. It helps motivate your team. It helps you to find solutions. It helps you reinforce the goal. It helps people to keep focused. And so when you have these, you can do like a weekly check-in, something like every Monday. Everybody meets up in person or virtually for 30 minutes. They share their top 3 goals for the week. Boom. Now you got accountability in place. Now you have clarity on what you need to get done. Each person provides a quick update on progress on each of those goals. The peers, they can offer suggestions, encouragement, assistance. This when you set these weekly goal setting check-ins, you can keep goals top of mind so that you can ensure this consistent progress. You can, if somebody sees something that's going to go awry, you can have an early intervention. You can get early support, and again, it just really fosters this accountability without this feeling of a formal review. So a weekly goal setting is a great, great strategy. Sometimes people like to do a daily check-in. So 15-minute daily stand-up is a tool that is used. So you peer check-ins for every day for 15 minutes, and then the 3 questions are: what did you get done yesterday? What are you going to work on today? What challenges do you have? And they're just short meetings so that you're just laser being focused on, on sharing these updates. And so people like these daily stand-ups because they build momentum without taking up a lot of time. And again, you're looking at what are some solutions that you can focus on. And it helps your team to work on any time sensitive projects, or if they're trying to learn a new skill, just to make sure it's connecting, right? If you don't like the weekly or you don't like the daily, there's also a peer accountability buddy system. So you're pairing your team up with an accountability partner, and then they check in via text or a call or a meeting, and they ask each other what's progress each other has made since their last check-in, what's the challenge that they can help each other out with, what's the next step that they can get done, and when can they have it done. So this accountability partner here, again, it just really encourages support because there's this one-on-one relationship. There's this shared responsibility. When you commit to being an accountability partner, and it does allow for honest conversations that might not happen in a much larger kind of group setting. So that one-on-one accountability can be very powerful. And then, of course, there is the monthly reflection and feedback session. And so when you do these monthly feedbacks, it allows you to think about what went well, what you can improve. It allows you to, have some constructive feedback. It allows you to set some goals, for the next month. And so these become important because if you can get this kind of feedback and feed forward, it really does help you to do better. The idea is that when you know better, you can do better. When you get that constructive feedback and feed forward, again, it enables you to, continue to think about what went well, what do you want to continue to do, what you want to leave behind. And that when you're able to set the goals for the next month, you can see the progress. You can see how it connects out to some of those charts that we've been using as well. So those are the 6 steps that I wanted us to work through, and I left some time for some questions. All right. So,
I have a question. This is Lenore with
yes.
Wraparound. First of
Hi,
all,
Lenore.
hi. This has been the best session for me. I'm just going to tell you, I've
Yay.
appreciated this totally. I know this is recorded, but the slides that have like the charts on it, like the action plan and just those last 3 or 4 that you showed us,
Yes.
do we have access to those?
Yes.
I just want all those, action plan and the Gantt and the other one.
Yes. Yep.
Can we
So, yes, you will, and I will again. I'll put all 4 of those links back into the chat, so you'll have them again. Save the chat as well. But
So,
yes.
okay, so the links, because I copied the links, do the links have the examples or do they just have the open, the ones that we're going to fill out?
So there you should have 4 links, 2
Yeah.
blanks and 2 examples.
Oh, okay, cool. Thank you.
I'll put them I will put them on a sheet and make sure you have everything.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep. Any other questions? I'm going to put everything back in the chat again.
No, I just want to echo what she just said. This is great.
Okay, wonderful.
No, and I went in and filled out one of the time slots in the
Okay,
teaching
wonderful.
assistant.
I need to.
Do we just go in there and fill it out? Do I have to save it or anything, or that's just it?
Nope, it'll Shira has set it up so it automatically saves. You know,
Okay.
Shira don't be playing, you know.
Oh, yeah, where is that link for that training?
It's on the, they sent us an email, Mr. Kelly.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the very first link on the email, and then the 3 links below
Email?
were the meetings until like April 9th or something.
On the email.
Dr. Madden, can I direct your attention to a question in the chat that Wally asked?
Yes, please.
It's kind of gone up a little bit, but it says, how can I manage my emotions when priorities shift so quickly and I start to feel overwhelmed or stuck? What tools can I use? And if you scroll up a little bit, you might be able to see that.
Okay. Okay. So all 4 links are in the chat, and all right. And thank you for that very, very important question, Wally. So there's a couple of techniques that I think are incredibly helpful. Okay, breathing is one of those things that can help you just like bring it down, right? Also know that know your strengths. Always lean into your strengths, right? We can only be distinctive in our areas of strengths. If we're focused on what those strengths are, we should lead with those strengths. Now let me say a word about that. We have been trained in so many things that we do to think about the things that we need to work on. When we get, for example, coaching, it's never coaching on the things you're already good at. It's always coaching on the things that you need to get better at. But I'm here to tell you, I need you to think differently. I need you to focus on your strengths and lead from a strength perspective. Because when you're distinctive in those strengths and you're in your strength zone, it gives you the ability to really push through. So whenever you're feeling overwhelmed, priorities are starting to change, you lean into your tools and you lean into your strengths and you breathe so that you can know which pathway that you need to take. You know, there's never anything wrong with having to create a workaround. Again, it is a form of resilience, you know, and there's something incredibly powerful about that pathway, right? It's something incredibly powerful about leaning into your strength and building that resilience. Now, while I wouldn't mind if you put your voice in the space and said more about these things. And before you do, I'm going to leave you one more that I often talk about, that we take from the I like to say we take it from the airline school of management. You know, when you take a flight, you know what they tell you? You put your mask on first, and then you help the people around you, right? So you have to think about how you can ground yourself, strategically think how you move forward, and move based upon your strengths. Wally, can I add anything else to your statement?
Yes. I was just going to share really quickly to add more to the question that I work in finance. As some of you know, finance is for a nonprofit. It's very busy, right? We deal with so many different things. We serve multiple group audiences, right? We have funders, we have public people that we need to serve, we have participants, we have staff members, and sometimes priorities shift so fast and there's so many things to do. And there are times where I'm in the middle of my day and I'm dealing with AP and processing bills and doing this and that, but then all of a sudden something come up and I need to shift my energy and my attention into something that is urgent, right? And then all of a sudden something else come up too. So there are only 8 hours in the day, and I cannot sometimes get everything together. But I think the hardest part is just dealing with the emotional aspect of this. It's like, okay, how not to panic, how not to immediately jump very reactive. So I go immediately into the doing and try to take action. And sometimes maybe that is that plays against to me, in the sense that maybe I should pause. Maybe I need to, but then also, although we have resources like my boss, and we have different tools and project management tools like Monday and things like that, still the emotional aspect is the part that is the most difficult, I think, in my view, because when to ask for help or when to ask for guidance, sometimes it's hard too, because everyone is busy, right? So I think that's what I was trying to get at with the question.
I appreciate that question, and I get that. And also, then I will say that how are you using technology? Technology is a very powerful tool. Like, and are you using the technology, for example, as a sounding board? Like, here are a bunch of tasks. Which would need to be prioritize the ones that have high urgency. Like, maybe that's something that you can delegate to a technology to organize for you so that you can continue to main focus on knocking the things off the list. Maybe instead of, going through your Eisenhower matrix because it's just a matter of a bunch of tasks that need to get done, you drop that list of tasks into, AI assistance and just say, organize this in ways that I can get this done quickly in the most efficient manner, a most efficient way possible. And then you just work your list, so when we're able to tap into the technology, let's do it. Let's do it, because the our ability to bring these creativity and human only traits, powerful. Let the tech help us in other ways that we can just, have them running plays and creating lists for us to just knock out. And remember to breathe, you know? Remember this important thing. Having that like dropped on your plate can feel like a bunch of bad news because you've been focused, you've been getting things done, and now you've just hijacked your day and your time and your mental energy. This kind of takes me to this idea of remembering to protect your joy. And this is so paramount to the things that you do. Here's the important part. Like, when you have a negative interaction, you need 7 positive interactions to offset that negative interaction, right? And so this is another way that becomes emotionally exhausting, is that when you get overwhelmed with like negativity, just remember, like, create a way that you can bring yourself back to positivity, because when you're in your positive space, you're able to be exponentially more impactful. So I tell folks, cue up them cat videos, look at the pictures of that one time you got to go on vacation, get your mind back into this positive space so that you continue to have like a positive impact. So get back on your square so that you can continue to operate from a strength-based perspective. Okay? All right, good. Okay, Shira, I think my work is done here.
Thank you, Dr. Madden, and appreciate everyone's participation and their questions and also engagement. We will be working to have this training posted to our website. We'll send an email when it becomes available. If you feel like I want this training sooner, then later, please reach out to our team and we'll be able to just send the Zoom link over to you. Also sending a quick reminder to sign up for coaching. If you have not already, if you'd like to sign up for a time to connect with Dr. Madden, just look for the tab that says Leverage Point Development. We also have a few other providers as well. There's your part-time controller. They focus in on nonprofit accounting. There's Mirror Group. They have a focus on evaluation, and also the Youth Leadership Institute, which focuses on youth engagement and policy systems and environmental change. We want to thank all of you for participating in today's webinar, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Yeah, Sarah, I was looking for that coaching session for the 31st.